Thoughts on it's also men's fault that women are promiscuous, of course. A woman doesn't become a without plenty of men enabling it to be responsible. Okay, well, it's like chicken or the egg. Okay, I think I mentioned this before the episode before last, which was Aaron Clary's. At what point do we cease to become our sister's keeper? If it's all men's fault, and again, remember, men are supposed to man up and be better for the benefit of women, right? Whether it's feminism or it's traditional conservatism, the end result is prioritize the gynocentrism. It's prioritizing the female experience as the predominant and the correct experience for everyone. So men should be on board with women's life plan, and women should be on board with women's life plan. That's what it really comes down to. You need to sacrifice. If a woman decides she wants to fuck this guy, have his baby, and you come on and you're also supposed to provide for her. And if you don't, then you're a misogynist fuck. And you know what? Here's the pastor of my church who will come and tell you you're a misogynist fuck too, because Jesus wants you to take care of that.
God wants you to have the baby.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Thank you, Rob. Fresh was right. Go against the grain. Follow Fresh. But the idea is that this technique right here, it's basically a social tactic, is what it is. It's convincing men that they are still they're not only are men responsible for their own fuck ups, they're also responsible for women's fuck ups. It's the same dynamic when you say, like, okay, if you cheat on your wife, it's your fault. And if she cheats on you, it's also your fault because you weren't man enough to keep her satisfied or meet her needs or whatever the fuck it is. Meet her needs is exactly what I'm talking about when I say prioritizing the female experience above the male experience. We didn't used to do that, by the way. Prior to the sexual revolution, when we had like a sort of a nominal patriarchy, in an ideal perspective, in an ideal way, patriarchy is a much more balanced system than gynocentrism or feminism. Because in a patriarchy, a man had authority, but he also had responsibility. In a patriarchy, a man has to be responsible for his kids and has to be responsible for his wife. In fact, right up until the post-war era, men, well, even after that, men had to be responsible. If their children were criminals, the man was responsible for them being criminals. If the woman bankrupted the company, if the woman was a criminal, if the woman did certain things that were against the legal system or whatever, the man was responsible for the woman. Why are you not? Why keep this bitch in pocket? How come? Like it was presumed. It was just assumed that the guy was going to take that control. It was a basis of the coverture laws back in the day, meaning like what feminists will always say this: women couldn't own property, they couldn't own anything, they couldn't go to school. No, they could, they absolutely could. But once they got married, they lost the right to those things. So if a woman could inherit a business from her father, she could inherit money from her family, she could inherit land as well and keep it as long as she didn't get married. Because once she got married, all of that was presumed to be under the purview of her husband, because that man is now responsible for that woman and her land and the money and everything else. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to take all this stuff from this horrible little spinster here. That wasn't the way it would work. It was just the fact that that man was legally responsible for that chick. And by the way, women have been able to vote for quite some time. You know, the thing that's funny is like when we talk about like, oh, we didn't ratify the right to vote for women until 1920, which is true in the United States. But what they don't tell you is that men couldn't vote until, like right up until like the Civil War, right? And for the vast majority of most of human society, neither men nor women could vote at all. So when we talk about the coverture laws, though, I love talking about this. I actually brought this up in my book, Religion. It was more advantageous for a woman to stay single because she could keep her land, she could keep her money, she could keep the dad's business, you could own the business anyways. She could keep all that and be responsible for it, right? But she was responsible for it. So if the business went tits up, she was responsible for it because there's no husband there. If she marries, then the husband becomes responsible for that. And like one of the things we always say is like when we see young men, 14, 18, somewhere around there, and they're addicted to drugs or they are suicidal or they're criminal or whatever else. they're raised by a single mother, what we don't say, where's the single mother? We say, where's the father? You know why? Because under the old school, on the old set of rules, the man was responsible for all of that. And that was part of patriarchy. Patriarchy implied that men were responsible for their wives and their children, but they also had a commensurate authority to enforce that fucking responsibility in the first place. Now, under the new 21st century rules, men have no authority, but they have a hyper inflated requirement of responsibility. So men have to be 50-50. They have to be equals, even though they are clearly superior to the woman in various different ways, right? Well, we say, a woman can't look up to a man if that's her equal, right? But he still has to consider himself an equal. That's part of taking authority away from men. The fact that this mentality that, I have all this power and I have all of this options and I have all this stuff, but I'm really your equal. Well, we're going to pretend it's like it's the same pathology as pretending like somebody can change their gender on the fly. We're all going to play along with this narrative, even though I'm clearly 6 feet tall, more muscular, I make more money, I'm a high value guy, but I'm your equal. That's like saying men can give birth. I mean, really, it is. I mean, it's the same. It comes from the same stem. And so when you look at the coverture laws, and women had more rights and had more freedom outside of marriage than inside marriage, we've flipped that now. Men have more freedom and more opportunity and more ability to maneuver and have more options outside of marriage than they do inside of marriage, because the responsibility is all responsibility and no authority anymore. So when I listen to these guys talking about like assortative mating or whatever else, and they want to base this assortative here, it must be true because look, likes get with likes. Women who are like this get with men who are like this too. Like, well, yeah, that might have been true under the old way of thinking. But the thing is that if we have this mentality of like sort of this co-equal, blank slate bullshit, does that even make any difference anymore? Probably not, because we're trying to be more alike because we feel like we have to. So if the optimal way of thinking or the predominant experience on planet Earth is to be a female, men will take that to the nth degree. They'll become female. They will pretend they are, like the bearded lady on Dr. Phil with Matt Walsh. But it's also so yeah. So how do you buffer that? You buffer it by making everything men's responsibility. That's really kind of what you're getting after right here. I've heard this in various ways, but it's usually women would be better if men were better. Okay, well, what does that do? That says that women have no agency. They have no moral agency for sure, because anything that is the consequences of their actions are the responsibility of men, or they are the root cause is of men. So if men weren't jerking to OnlyFans, then women would be better. No, it would be something else. There will always be something else. Like, so when guys say, they're addicted to porn, they're addicted to video games, they're addicted to this. Okay, take all of those things away. There'll still be something else that guys will use as a sedation, or women will use as a use to avoid accountability. So when we look at like, I think ostensibly when we look at shows like whatever podcast, or we look at like Fresh and Fit or Access Vegas, even to a certain degree, or you look at some of these quote unquote, those red pill influencers, those predominant voices in the manosphere, right? When we look at those things and we say, well, they're trying to hold women accountable. Well, you can diffuse all of that if you say it's men's responsibility and it's men's fault that they're that way anyway. So how can you hold them accountable? Hold men accountable instead of women. Okay, well, what that presumes is there's no agency, there's no moral agency, there's no real sort of accountability involved in this at all, because anything a woman does is not her fault. She's completely sinless. She goes to heaven and you go to hell because you weren't man enough to go to heaven. You weren't man enough to keep Eve from pulling the apple off the fucking tree and feeding it to you. That's what that states. It's all about this moral agency. And so women are just this automatons, right? They're robots. They have no responsibility. They have no accountability. It's only about men. Because when you take that to its most illogical, absurd, logical end, that's what it boils down to. You're saying, so by saying, and I love it when women say this, like, oh, well, it's because of men. It's men's fault that women are so fucked up. Okay, so what you're saying is you're like a child. Like we were just saying, you're a child and you can't be held responsible for your own actions because you are sinless, because you don't know any better and men do. Is that what I'm getting from you? Because at least we can start from a better ground point, a better basis. I can talk to you if you are if that's the accepting, the predominant theory that you're throwing at me, right? Then I can at least treat you like a child. Because you can't take accountability. That's what children do. They don't take account. It's up to we blame the bad behavior of a child on the parent, right? So if it's men's responsibility, or their accountability, their liability. It's men's liability for women's actions. Then men should be able to treat women like children. But you don't want. Oh my God! How dare you? How dare you? How dare you say I don't have agency? How dare you? It's free will. You have, ladies, you have no free will. You have, if I imagine me saying that on like whatever podcast, ladies, none of you have free will because it's my responsibility or it's my failing that you're all fucking around on OnlyFans making $43 million and then calling yourself a born again Christian. Did you see that? Thing? Oh my God. I'm a born again Christian. I didn't want to do this. I just made $43 million and then I'm out. It's like Bitcoin. Okay, that's at 100,000. I'm out. Okay, I made enough money. And now I can go and play the prodigal daughter. Well, and then I can blame it on men. No, at some point. By the way, I'm being facetious. Trying to be funny. I don't believe that for a second. I think human beings, like especially if you're TradCon and you're the one of the fundamental basis of your ideology is personal responsibility, then it's not men's fault that OnlyFans girl is fucking around making money. It's her fault too. Can we share the fault? At the very least, can we share the fault? Because if you're going to say it's all men's fault, women would be better if men would be better. Okay, but women would have to be better too. And like I said, at what point do we cease to be our sister's keeper and they have to take responsibility for their own fucking actions? I've said this many times. People want to say, Rolo, do you think we should repeal the 19th? I'm like, well, first of all, that's untenable. And no, I don't. I don't think we should repeal the 19th. I think women should absolutely have the right to vote. I think they should vote intelligently. And not that I have much faith in that, but I think they should have the right to vote. Absolutely. But I also think that they should be held accountable for the choices and the votes that they cast. So if you say, well, the only reason Kamala got into office or whatever is because if men would have stepped up and took care of this thing, then, we wouldn't be in such a shitty place. You ever see that, that meme that says, tough times create hard men, or good men create good times create weak men create hard times, right? Mm-hmm. It's always men. It's men in there. Like there's no accountability for women whatsoever. There's just say men and women. It's only men. So if we're going to say that, we're going to say it's only men, then ladies, fucking kneel down to the patriarchy right now and kiss the fucking ring, because you are. Don't complain when like I was saying before, big head babies, when men like consider you a child. So if I'm responsible for your sins and I'm held accountable for the results of for the consequences of your actions, then I have default authority, and you are and if men have any failing whatsoever, it's not assuming that authority. What do you want? Do you want to be sinless? Hell, I'd love to. Fuck yeah! How awesome would it be if I go, you know what? The reason why men are so fucked up is because of women. If I said that, oh my God, imagine me saying something like that. That's what most people who don't have any idea what the red pill is about, that's what they think. They think men just hate those women. They think that those women owe them sex. They think that their conditions and their shitty lives are a result of women's actions. Okay? But yet they want to say that women would be better if men were better. It's a fucking flip of the same fucking thing. It's a script just flipped. who's going to take responsibility for their own actions. I think men should take responsibility for their actions and women should take responsibility for their actions. Women should vote, men should vote. All that is fucking agency. All that is authority. I think people should be empowered, but they should be empowered. And then if they fuck up, if they make bad choices, they are held accountable for those choices. People hate it when I say, abortion and, I'm just use abortion. Abortion is just a fail-safe for women's bad reproductive choices. Abortion would not exist if women didn't make bad reproductive choices. Now, what's going to happen? People go, but Rollo, what about the guys? It takes a dick to make her pregnant in the first place. Yeah, it does to make her pregnant, but an abortion happens after. Abortion is post facto. Only a woman can get an abortion, not a man. So that's on you. That is your responsibility, your accountability for that abortion, because it's a fail-safe. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not making a moral judgment on whether or not you got an abortion or you didn't. Okay. I'm just saying that's the mechanics of it. Everybody wants to turn it into an emotional thing, right? Oh, well, don't you think it's right? Don't you think it's wrong? I'm the red pill, man. That's not my purview, not my circus, not my monkeys, not my wheelhouse. I just tell you the fucking mechanics. I'll let you make the judgment call. If you want to ask me what I think, like personally, I'll tell you off camera. But here, in the form of the red pill, that's what it's about.